How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses on BTWProductions.com and YouTube.com with your favorite show hosts, Still.
Fenarian.
And Volacel, and we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week. But first of all, if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesbtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesbtw, or you can join us in our Discord server, which you can easily get to by going and clicking on the link provided in the show description underneath the show archive on YouTube. Or alternatively, you can go to vtwproductions.com and click on click on the show logo on any of our recent show posts.
Yes.
If we have any recent show posts.
We don't recently. So, I'm going to do something incredibly unwise, and this is probably going to go horribly wrong. I'm going to play Spore on the stream.
Why?
Where did you even find that?
Yeah, so, I don't know, I kind of got it in my head. I saw videos of people modding it to the eyeballs, literally, in some cases. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to do that. And I spent maybe 2 hours yesterday, all told, actually getting the thing to work.
This doesn't answer the question of earlier.
Because
why?
For some reason, I've gone and completely lost my mind this week. I don't know why. For example, I also spent a couple of hours just playing Neo Scavenger after watching Seth Zetach watch it.
Because that's a really great reason.
That's a reason not to play something, usually.
If Seth does a video on a game, unless that game's God Hand, you don't touch that game.
Oh yeah, that game is... God Hand is brilliant, by the way. If you haven't played it, go play God Hand. I don't care how, but go do it. So, yeah, I mean, I was doing all right at it. I mean, I had my little hobo house, I had hobo clothing, I had hobo food. What I didn't have is hobo drinking water. Or possibly I had too much hobo drinking water, because dysentery happened.
That seems to be a running theme in a lot of games Seth likes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he likes games involving a great deal of suffering on his part.
Right, so... So I'm just going to dive into the cell stage to start with. I'm only going to do it on easy because I'm not really paying attention. At least with mods, the game becomes harder, although it breaks at weird points. I've done one playthrough on very hard, sort of. Creature phase works mostly okay. Cell phase works okay. Tribal phase does not. And Tribal Phase is where the original game really started to go downhill. So, yeah, okay, you can have a much bigger tribe now, and you can place buildings wherever you want. The pathfinding doesn't like that, though. And in any given fight, half your creatures will just be standing around bobbing up and down instead of actually fighting. So, there's that.
I see.
Yeah. I don't know. Spore... It's probably the poster child for missed game potential.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure that Star Citizen is competing for that title.
I'm not even sure what you'd call Star Citizen at this point. Possibly
a
money laundering scheme?
Will Wright is the closest anybody's managed to come to being a Molyneux imitator.
Yeah. I've actually got... When the game first came out, I did buy the collector's edition, so I have the original art book around somewhere.
Are you able to install it on any more computers?
No. Thankfully, they did fix that for the most part. But that book is a time capsule for what could have been. There was so many good ideas that they even had in the earlier trailers, saying, okay, you can do this and that. And the whole game had a much darker theme. There was an additional phase, the underwater phase, where you'd be a fish for a while, but I think that got cut because it was too similar to the cell stage. So many cool ideas, but they ultimately got axed because corporate meddling happened. They wanted the game to be much more youth-friendly. Youth-friendly, kid-friendly. You know, about this game about intelligent design. Or if you watch any sort of YouTubes, this game about making horrible monstrosities that should not exist in any reality.
Let's be real, it's a game about making Maura, a race of Maura.
Yeah, that's how it went. What actually surprised me, though, is the Spore library is still there. And still actively being contributed to.
But why?
People like the game, somehow.
People like Maura.
People like Maura as well. Although I'm not entirely sure why.
I'm not sure anybody genuinely likes Maura.
No.
I think people ironically like Maura or like it because he's a funny haha joke.
And he talks entirely in dick puns.
Should have known again.
So yeah, I'm just going to do that on the stream, and I'll probably get bored within the next hour. The creature creators, at least, the creation systems they put into this game are really, really good. It's just, the game just... Especially when it starts off so strong with the cell stage being exactly what it needs to be. But then, yeah, you get the creature stage where it's either murder everything or sing and dance at everything. And then your tribal stage, which is either murder everything or then sing and dance at everything.
Honestly, I found that I often ended up just converging on real-world creatures.
Yeah.
Possibly because those body plans have been demonstrated to be efficient.
They work. And while the game will do its best to animate anything you put into it, it does better with real-world body shapes. Like, 4 legs or 2 legs and 2 arms or whatever. When you start carrying on with things like 3 heads, it starts getting a bit weird. Alright, so for the rest of my week, not too much. I've actually more dusted off my old dog course and actually going back and finally finishing that because it's been on the backlog for that long.
I thought you'd finished it.
No, I basically hit a wall where I just didn't have time anymore to actually finish it. So finally, actually, thank you more anything than the Woo flu. I finally got time to go finish it. I would have actually had the final piece of assessment done this morning, but it involves an animal, and animals have wills of their own. And sometimes an animal will just decide, "No, I'm not going to do whatever you want me to do." So that was fun. But yeah, that's basically been my week, is revolving around that. Also trying to avoid the Steam sale. I'm trying to think if there actually really is anything else worth talking about this week, but nothing's coming to mind.
Yeah, it's been one of those weeks.
Yeah.
There've been a lot of them really since the coof.
Yes. I did end up watching a whole stuff about what's going on over in Seattle at the moment, which is good for a laugh. But that's pretty much over. Oh, why?
Yeah, have they dismantled it all now?
It's on its way out the door. It is not gone yet. Well, I think it's pretty much well and done, but not for lack of them trying to keep it open unsuccessfully.
It's like I said when the thing first started. It'll keep going until the murders begin.
Yeah. Well, the first murder didn't stop it. The second murder didn't stop it. The third through 7th murder didn't stop it. But they don't. When they acknowledged the third murder, there was actually 3 killings at least that they're willing to say, yeah, those happened. Then they had to put it down.
Yeah. So yeah, fun's over.
Also, if this is your idea of a summer of love, honey, I don't want to know what you do to your enemies.
Oh, come on. They don't believe any of the stuff that comes out of their mouths.
But it's worth pointing out the hypocrisy, even if it does nothing. Because one day it might be worth it.
Yeah, at least it's worth a laugh.
I heard something went down in Portland as well. Like, they just got sick of the rioters and the police just went through there with billy clubs beating everybody. I didn't look into it, so I don't know the details.
I haven't looked.
Try to set up another autonomous zone there in Portland?
Well, the thing is that Portland, the city, is basically an autonomous zone because it's run by Antifa.
Yeah.
Yeah, Portland is the most woke city in the U.S. aside from like L.A. and might even be worse than L.A.
No, it's worse than LA, because LA just has politicians that put up a good show of being sympathetic to Antifa's goals. In Portland, Antifa are the police.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, like these places were, I guess they were closer to Russia and easier to land on. The commies got to them real bad.
Oh dear. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's really been my week. I played a little bit of No Man's Sky, and that's still proving to be enjoyable. Although I tend to get into this rut where I'm trying to find the ideal planet to set up a base on.
You can search forever, though.
Yeah, exactly. You can, because every planet will have something wrong with it.
Or there's just enough different with every planet. This planet has too many sentinels on it. This planet has too many animals that want to eat me. This planet's the wrong color. This planet's the wrong biome. This planet's got the wrong weather. You can go through this checklist forever while trying to find the perfect one, but you're gonna have to make a compromise somewhere.
Yeah.
Because the chance of you finding the ideal paradise world you're looking for, it ain't good. Ain't good at all, dude.
Yeah. That's partly because I did find a really good planet to set up on, and I got down into building, and oh wow, that is not behaving on the stream. Wow. Okay, so every time I go in and out of the creature editor, the stream wigs out. That's fun. Anyway. Yeah, I built a base out of the modular components, the individual walls and floors. And then I ran into the single big problem with those pieces. You can't connect power into them.
Yeah, you have to manually wire everything together and then put a wire hider at the bottom of your base.
Yeah, you're supposed to be able to make a transformer, which hooks it all in. So you plug the transformer into those building pieces, and then they power everything placed on them. One problem, though, the transformer's not actually in the game.
Yeah, that ain't gonna work.
Yeah. So I blew that base up and said, screw this, I'm moving to the next system.
Yeah, that's generally how it goes. It took me forever to figure out how power and electricity works.
Yeah.
Because it's not counterintuitive or even really bad. It's just fine. But
they don't really tell you very well.
But yeah, they don't explain anything.
Yeah. So yeah, that's right. My new base is actually going to be built into the side of a mesa.
That's okay. My last base that I built was on a literal barren world filled with horrors and monstrosities with no flora at all, and
no ability to jump.
Well, you can jump. you can jump on that one, but it actually has low gravity, so you can super jump on it.
Well, I thought you said that monsters can't make it over knee-high walls.
They can't.
Oh yeah, they can't. But these particular monsters have a ranged attack. These are actual space monsters, like not like they're what they call the monstrosities in the game.
Not aberrations or sometimes.
Yeah, so they just are chilling on the planet, and they're the only fauna there, and all the flora is dead. It's just rocks. So I named this place Biden's Brain.
I haven't actually found one of those planets yet, so that's a thing.
I'll be touching down there in a second.
Is Biden's still alive? Like I haven't heard from him lately.
I think
maybe
it's the Ruth Bader Ginsburg problem. Like, is she alive, or is she just a corpse being puppeted around by her handlers?
Is it a weekend at Bernie's situation here?
Oh, it'd be yeah,
Bernie.
I really wished Bernie had won so I can make Weekend at Bernie's jokes.
The joke is too easy though.
Yeah, I think that they would wear thin very quickly.
Yes.
Which is not to say that there wouldn't be more creative memes come up with, because there seem to have been no shortage of them.
We have Joe Biden's own very few supporters to thank for the best Joe Biden meme, The Jopedo.
Oh boy. Alright. Now that I'm out of the cell stage, let's see what unspeakable monstrosity I can make here.
Oh,
So-
No Man's Sky blocks the word libtard, by the way. You can't enter that as a valid name for anything. Profanity filter gets mad at you.
That's not profanity. My goodness.
Let's make a bulb.
Oh dear.
Alright, so
What are you attempting to create?
I'm not sure. It's just going to kind of happen, I think.
That's the best way to do things.
Let's see if I put the mouse
You're not going
kind
to
of
create an
there.
entire race of A Steve?
No.
Oh.
Ooh, I know. One, and there we go.
I can't see what you're doing.
It's just basically an eyeball on a stick now.
I think one of those moved in next to my tribe of creatures when I played it the one time that I played it ever.
And
Is Spore abandonware yet, or does somebody actually still sell it?
oh yeah, it's still available on Steam and GOG and places like that.
Have they removed the DRM?
Yes, they did that a few years ago. Though, if you want to access the Steam, the Spore, Sporepedia, I think they call it, you need to register it with EA.
I
Alright,
see.
so let's go.
Wasn't there like a spin-off or something as well?
Darkspore, yeah, which is an ARPG version of it.
Is it better than Spore?
No, it was actually quite awful.
So is it worse?
Yes, I'd say it was actually worse.
So they managed to outdo themselves.
Yeah, because they took away what made Spore enjoyable, or at least the enjoyable parts of Spore, and that was the creature creation. All your creatures were in that game were pre-made. You can modify them a little bit and upgrade their parts, but by and large, you couldn't change them. Oh yeah, this looks horrible. Hang on, needs a mohawk.
Oh, I didn't even know there were shootable switches in PSO2.
Yeah, you run into them occasionally.
There's no explanation for any of this crap.
Nope. And that's
I was
probably
like,
the
I
only
can't
other
figure
thing
out
I'll
how to
talk about
get
for
them.
my week is the PSO challenge quests. They do a
Okay, I
very,
did one of those. It was very strange.
very, very strange. I haven't played anything else like it in an MMO. What it does is you go into a challenge block, which is this entirely new area just for these quests. And you go in there and everything on your character is gone. Your inventory, you've got your pants, and that's it. Your class is gone. You are now a challenger. It doesn't matter what you were before. Your stats are all normalized. You have no abilities. And that's how you start.
Or
And to run
consumable.
everyone. Oh, wow. I apologize for people who are seeing the horrible things going on the stream. Wow, that's... This game does not play nicely with capture software. Although, to be fair, it barely runs on Windows 10 as it is. Oh, this is like... Oh, dear. I might actually just... Yeah, until this cutscene's over. I hope no one's epilepsy finds this. Let's just say that. Oh, boy. That's awful. Let's skip this cutscene. Okay, now it should be alright. Oh, hang on. Yes? No? Maybe? No? Yeah, okay, this isn't working. It's actually wigging out quite horribly behind the scenes here.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised that after all these years, Spore still has problems.
Yeah. And now you can't see what unspeakable horror I turned this into. Let me see if I can do something about it. So yeah, my week, I'm just going to tangent it into Vol's week while I fix this. So let's talk challenge quests.
Right, so you get stripped of everything that makes you you except your character model.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing you get to keep. Your inventory is empty. Your skill bars are empty. You've got no loadout set up, no armor, no weapons, no nothing. You are just an empty shell of your former self.
You're a husk.
And like with everything else in this game, you are given no explanation as to what is really expected of you.
Yeah, they try to explain it a bit with a few very long-winded tutorials. It don't work.
Well, it's just text.
It is. It's just text.
Like it was discovered a long time ago that text is really not sufficient for teaching game systems.
It really isn't. So really, you basically go into this game mode completely naked, completely afraid, and with no idea what to do. And you have to learn.
Alongside a dozen other strangers who are many of them are equally as confused as you, and very few of them are cooperative.
Yeah. What it'll do is you jumped into a game arena and it will give you an objective, which is usually just, go kill the dudes. But it'll also throw a twist on it, like the one I got was decision. So at every now and again it will give 2 buttons which have 2 sets of loot behind them, so you pick one.
I didn't understand what was going on with that. By the time I got there, the button had already been pressed every time. So
yeah, it's not a decision by the player; it's a decision by the group. So whoever gets there first basically presses whatever button they feel like. From what I can tell, it makes absolutely no difference. Because you pick up weapons as you go, as well as skills. And you're not restricted by class. You're actually called a challenger going into this thing. So you can use all weapons, all skills, all abilities.
Which is to say that a random weapon will likely drop for you early on, and you'll pick that up and you will like it until such time as you get the opportunity to trade it out for something else.
And woe be on you if you don't like that type of weapon, because you ain't getting another one.
And woe betide if you just don't get any skills for it.
Yes.
Or you get 1 skill for it and it's not very good, or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. The game's working again now. Oh, wow. I've made terrible mistakes. I've just found out what the baby version of this is. Oh. And it's just an eyeball with legs.
I see.
Yeah, everything else is inside the eyeball. It's just the eyeball.
That's
all right.
Not really a viable body plan.
No, so mistakes were made.
Darwin is a cruel mistress.
Darwin's got absolutely nothing to do with this. He took 1 look and gave up. I'm going to go murder whatever's happening over here. Preferably without excessive tutorials.
So, yeah, my experience with the challenge quest was that I was dumped into a snowy area and was attacked by yetis. And everybody ran about attempting to punch yetis to death.
Yep.
Until they got their first weapon, at which point hijinks continued because everybody ran around randomly hitting whatever that they could. And just sort of proceeding by a mode of movement I can only refer to as diffusion toward the final goal. So I think that basically the structure seems to be you get given 5 areas to complete within the time limit. The time limit being VR energy, which seems that it expends naturally over the course of time, but you recharge it by picking up drops or completing certain objectives, and additionally it will take a big hit if somebody keels over.
Yeah, you don't want to be
KO'd. Keel over easily, usually in 1 or 2 hits.
Yeah.
Because everything hits, it's not like things hit particularly hard, but you are naked.
You are naked.
So,
and you are low
and
level.
you have no skills, and nobody is going to have a heal particularly early on. I don't know if there are ways you can procure one later.
Dumb luck.
You just have whatever medicine you can scavenge.
Yeah, it's blind luck if someone will actually get a heal skill. So that's fun.
So I got jet boots, which is something that I have never attempted before and seems to involve a lot of sort of... Have you ever watched a Gmod video?
Just
and
random characters flying through the air.
yeah, and
Yeah.
they'll just sort of fly through the air with their limbs sort of furiously waving, with not any particular reason to do so. So I ragdolled my way through the first two stages, just basically flailing about, not really accomplishing much of anything, and just hoping that I was hitting something with my basic attack. After that, I mercifully got to the swap station and traded in for a bow, which is something I know how to use, and the only skill which they had in the swap station, which was an AOE skill. It turned out to be quite effective because while it's very very hard to land the equivalent to the volley in World of Warcraft, it's very hard to land it on monsters because much like in Guild Wars 2, the monsters have a very keen sense of just leaving the area if you decide to drop an AoE on them.
Mm-hmm.
But it does have sort of like, it's basically got hit stun on it, so it has a mild CC effect effectively due to the animation of being hit. So it was actually really effective for pinning down things that were charging or holding things still so that other people could hit them in that. So I was actually a contributor in the second half.
Yay!
But people started hitting the dirt repeatedly after that, so we didn't make it further than the beginning of the fourth stage.
All right. I might actually have to stick an epilepsy warning on this video.
I got the miles thing that you seem to get at the end, but I have no idea what it's for or what to do with it.
Yeah, there is a vendor back in the main square who
I
is
see.
enthusiastic, let's just say, with his voice acting.
Right.
It is the most ridiculously overblown NPC in the game so far.
Well, I don't know if I've done anything like it. I certainly don't think I've done anything which involves having a random skill, but it seems like the sort of thing that might exist in Guild Wars 2.
Yeah,
I haven't kept up with it, but their game systems would accommodate it, and it seems like something that they might do as well. There isn't anything quite like it in Final Fantasy 14. I don't think. Maybe there is. But yeah, it is an interesting phenomenon. I'm not sure whether or not I'll sink any time into it on account of I don't know how that progresses my character.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't looked at the vendor yet to see if there's anything really important to get from it. But my immediate impression is, well, I still need to level, and I'm at the sticky part of the level grind right now. So yeah, apparently the 55 to 75 stretch is the worst.
Yeah, things start hitting really hard once you break that 55 barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gone into quests and okay, I've been able to take out most of the mobs relatively safely, although every now and again something will sneak up behind me and just eat my face. But bosses will take you for a ride.
Not a very long one.
Not a very long one, and one that ends up in a squishy mess usually. Alright, I'm just going to try something else on this. If this doesn't work and the game refuses to behave itself, instead of, descending into Earthbound style horrific nightmare fuel, which if you watch long enough will probably fry your brain, so don't do it. Let me see. Oh yeah, it's horrible.
I need to play Earthbound one of these days. Every time people make a reference to it, I have no idea what they're talking about.
Well, actually, no. You can't describe Earthbound. You've got to really just play it. Oh, yeah, I can up the resolutions on movies. That's a thing. Graphics, change it to full screen mode. It's probably going to blow the cursor out of center again, but I'll just deal with that. Okay, that seems to be stable now. Whoopsie. Except, now it's going to do, whatever it wants. There we go. Okay, no more nightmare fuel for the moment. So yeah, challenge quests, it does give you a score at the end, and your score determines what or how much miles you get. I've always kind of reached a point though. There's one of the big files hands shows up, and it's about then that my runs usually end.
I think we beat the hands, and then so many people died that we failed immediately afterward.
Yeah, because a lot of people died of the hand. Because the hand does all these massive high damage AoE attacks, which people just don't get out of the way of.
Yeah, by the time because it appeared at the start of World 4, and by the time I had gotten through the teleporter, there were lots of red "this person is dead" icons on the screen.
Oh, whoever made this creature has actually named it after their girlfriend. That's interesting. And by girlfriend, I possibly mean grade school crush.
I'm not sure how you're inferring any of this.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, don't people name their creatures really weird things. Also really horrible things sometimes.
I see.
Dum, 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 dum.
Like Maura.
Like Maura. And then there's this one here, which is simply called H.
H.
Just H. I'm even not sure how to describe this thing. It's a ball with a curved stick and one leg, and there's an eyeball on its back for some reason.
It's the hit the random generator.
There is no random generator. You need to put a minimal amount of effort to make something look awful. Alright. Okay. Anything else for your week, sir?
Oh, I didn't realize my week had even started.
It kind of had. It kind of hadn't.
Right. So yeah, I'm currently I haven't made any much progress at all on PSO2 this week, despite having at least attempted to play a little bit each day, like half an hour or something. But basically, what seems to invariably happen is I will do a mission, I'll get to the boss, and the boss will two-shot me.
Yeah, sounds about right.
It'll hit me once, I'll get stunned, it'll hit me again, and that's all she wrote. And I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure the way around this, other than playing with you guys. You know, if you were ever online. But also, you guys need to update your clones because they're just kind of a bit weak right now.
Mine should be relatively up to date.
Ares isn't. I know
Ares is not.
No, mine's still like level 30 something probably.
Ares is it's 45 or something like that. I think Ares is a flailing shopping bag of uselessness who just gets in the way of everything at the moment. And dies all the time, but which is difficult since the boss doesn't give a lot of priority to the enemy. I mean, to the allied clones at all. So
yeah, it tends to ignore them most of the time.
Yeah, unfortunately, I am currently playing a class that shatters very easily when hit, and bosses will hit and vigorously. I have had particularly difficult trouble with one or two of them that I have just basically deemed to be impossible to do by myself at my current level of skill. I mean, it's true that they do have a small level advantage on me simply because, you know, that's how you level up. You fight stuff that's harder than you. But, yeah, there's some real bullies in there. I can't remember what the sodding thing is called. Let's see if I look it up here. It just kills me every time. Gualjigmolder or something.
Yeah, the names are awful.
Yeah. Not sure how they derived these, but irrespective of that thing, it's sort of like a weird spidery thing, but it's got an enormous arc on its weapon. It will just swing it and clout you no matter where you are, and that will be it. I don't know what to do about it. I just feel extraordinarily bullied 99% of the time. But yeah, I haven't done much else on that other than just, you know, poke at leveling a little bit each night. But what else? The second major French event on Azure Lane ended with me having just barely managed to get all of the event ships at the last second. So another successful round of all my luck bleeding away into the gacha
Yeah.
by playing Azure Lane, so I got all of them. Some of them I might actually use. Some of them have grown on me through use, despite me not liking them much initially. And so the new event that has started is a mini event that's just basically, you do some grinding for a few days and then you get a ship type of. It's going to be. It seems to be a good event for stocking up on high level anti-aircraft weapons, since the blueprints for them drop from the boss. But yeah, it's basically, for most people, the point of it is it's an opportunity to get the USS Essex, which is probably the single most powerful solo use aircraft carrier in the game right now, if I had to guess, in terms of just damage output that it's capable of. So I've already got her. I got really lucky and got her in an early pull. I also got a couple of decent submarines, and I'm still holding out for the new aircraft carrier, who is just basically a collector's item, and for people who waifu her for whatever reason. The USS Shangri-La, who is basically a worse version of Essex. So there's no reason in meta terms to ever use her, which is why I say it's a waifu ship basically. And people that like her character use her. She's for glasses fanatics, I guess. But yeah, so that's that. FGO has been giving out a whole pile of quartz lately because of the anniversary and the milestone of people playing. So piles of free quartz available. And the Gotodamarung chapter has dropped. So that's Lost Belt 2. I haven't made very much progress in it yet. I've only done a little bit of it. But yeah, it seems like basically nothing ever goes right for the crew of the Shadow Border. Everything pretty much went pear-shaped almost the moment that they touched down in the new Lost Belt, which is pretty much exactly what happened last time as well. Arguably, things are even worse this time, even if the environment is a little bit more hospitable than the Russia Lost Belt. But yeah, I'm looking forward to playing through it because I've been really enjoying the stories lately. Like, you can really see the curve on the writing has steeply improved over the course of time, although my opinion is still that that Babylonia was the peak of it, closely followed by Camelot, although I could be convinced to change my mind on the order of the two. But yeah, I'm just suffering because I am trying to play too many things at once, ultimately. I haven't had any time whatsoever to play Final Fantasy XIV. There's too many things, which is why I'm staying off of Steam, because I don't want to buy any more games that I don't have time to play. But yeah, so there's a lot to do in mobile game world right now. I'm glad that that major events have finally fallen out of sync between FGO and Azure Lane, so that I don't get stuck like when Guda Guda was running at the same time as the major event in Azure Lane. But yeah, so as far as stuff to do this week, I have been quite busy at work, so that I haven't done anything else other than play at mobile games and PSO2. And what's more, there's not even any anime at the moment. I don't know what is actually showing on Japanese television right now, because
reruns, probably.
Yeah, I guess it must be reruns, because I don't really see anything happening on the anime front, like, at all.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah, like, there's just no shows. I don't know what's going on.
The only anime I've heard people mention as, oh, this might be good if they don't screw it up, is World Ends With You is getting an anime.
That's a long way away, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not even in. I think it's just entered production, like pre-production. So
I mean that there's literally nothing on right now. Not that there's nothing good on, that there's literally nothing on, because the season ended, but the new season hasn't started. Because everything is running on a slower timetable now.
I don't know.
That's what it seems to be the case, but, upcoming is not really anything that I'm particularly excited about. I think it's for the coming season is for people who are huge fans of Sword Art Online and ReZero. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I enjoyed the way the ones that I was following came to a close. Come the end of the season passed, the handful of shows that I watched were tended to be entertaining, more or less. But that's not really a strong endorsement, to be quite blunt.
No.
It was a very sparse season. Yeah, so ultimately I don't have really much more to say because it's been an entertainment light week, and I have the sort of discomforting feeling that there's not really that much to look forward to right now either. Like there's not really any big things that I'm waiting for coming out or anything like that.
Yeah, the coming season looks very anemic. It's just
and I'm not just talking about an anime either. Like there really aren't major video games that I'm waiting for either or anything like that.
There's a couple in the works that I'll be looking forward to, but like one of them doesn't come out till November, which is Cyberpunk. Apparently people are really liking what they've actually played on it though.
I have mixed feelings about Cyberpunk. Like if you stray away from the hug boxes where everybody is hyped for it, there's a lot of criticism being offered about apparently the whole bullshot thing is in full effect. Like they apparently did some really shady stuff with the quote gameplay unquote that they showed, which wasn't actually gameplay. It was pre-rendered that they had carefully cultivated to look like gameplay in the assumption that they would be able to catch up the actual gameplay before getting called on it.
Yeah, that happens way too much.
It's been delayed twice as well. Like there's a lot of reasons to be suspicious that maybe it's not all a bed of roses.
Yeah. So
if you can hear that over the hype, because holy cow, the hype.
The hype.
Like the hype engine is going so strong that I think that anytime that there is as much hype around as there is right now, you've got to at least take it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
Because you might not hear about it if there is something really wrong with it. Like even other major things like Witcher 3 didn't have the level of hype Cyberpunk's got, not by a long shot.
No. Really didn't. But let's just call it cautious optimism at this point.
Well, the thing is, I'm not really in the position. I don't feel like I should be cautiously optimistic. I feel like I should be neutral because the only things that they have shown are still trading on, their past performance.
Yeah, there is a lot of that.
It's not like they've actually shown anything that shows that the game is great.
No.
That's my feeling on the matter anyway. Like, I'm not willing to buy into the hype. If you want me to buy into the hype, it needs to be a Fate game. Then I'll buy into the hype as much as you want. But until
There's
then...
a Konosuba dress-up game coming.
Yes, I saw that. It won't be translated, though.
No, it won't.
So, disappointment. Man, localizers need to get the priorities straight.
Pretty ladies are a much better hype generator than whatever they call ladies in Cyberpunk 2077.
Well, degeneracy is the whole point of Cyberpunk, really.
Yeah, the Cyberpunk is the degeneracy genre, although typically speaking, it's a little bit less focused than what we're seeing. Like, it's supposed to be a bit more Slaneshi and a little bit less focused on transgenderism as the be-all and end-all.
Yeah, so we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard both things coming out of there. Like, I've heard people saying that inside CD Projekt Red has gone completely woke, and I've also heard people saying that no, they're based in Red Pilled. So I don't know which is true.
Yeah, but yes, we won't find out until the game comes out.
Yep, if it ever comes out and doesn't end up being like Star Citizen.
All right, I'll go with this abomination. It's pink.
Is that an endorsement?
No. What other games? No, Cyberpunk's one of the ones I'm interested in. I can't really think of any of the others at the moment. Oh yeah, Evil Genius 2.
I never really played the original. It looked like fun. Looked like a fun kind of sort of spiritual successor to Dungeon Keeper or something.
It
But,
was actually a lot of the original team from Dungeon Keeper 2 went on to make
Yeah.
Evil Genius because EA bought Bullfrog and proceeded to ruin everything.
That Dungeon Keeper 3, yo.
Oh. But Dungeon Keeper Mobile, never forget that.
There's a whole lot of things that
or preferably just forget that it ever happened for preference.
For your own sanity.
There's a limit on the never forgets at this point. We're reaching peak never forget when talking about game companies.
We're actually starting to have to forget some because there's too many to forget, to remember.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Speaking of things that we can't forget, didn't they make some way of didn't a fan release like a fan patch or something to get rid of Sonic Fox from Skullgirls?
Yes.
Nice.
Like less than 24 hours, there was a patch that just put the wall back, the old wall texture where Sonic Fox was.
Oh, good. We do not want that sort of nonsense going on.
And Mike Z apparently lost his marbles over it.
What do you mean?
He's the guy that made the game.
Right. So what was his actual reaction?
Oh, I didn't watch a reaction for it, but all reports are he was not happy that they had gotten rid of Sonic Fox like that and so quickly because the patch came out so fast.
It's not exactly a difficult thing to change, it's just one texture.
People really don't like Sonic Fox.
No. Really,
But they knew
people
that.
don't.
That's not a new thing. Everybody knows that. Even people who are not part of the FGC know that.
Yeah, he is. Ugh. He made the FGC lose like a whole 2.5 ranks of reputation in WoW terms, just by himself with one speech.
Yeah. That just being generally insufferable.
Anyway, Sonic Fox aside, because
Yeah.
I would be just as soon not talk about him ever again. Although we won't have that luxury. Oh,
No
poor
doubt.
Missing No. Poor Missing No.
What's he done?
He doesn't know what we're talking about.
Oh.
Look, I don't know if that's poor Missing No because he might walk into something he doesn't understand, or if that, lucky Missing No, he doesn't have to know. He doesn't require the knowledge of what Sonic Fox is.
What was it? BlizzCon 2018, I think it was, if you really
No,
want to know.
it was Game Awards.
Oh, right, Game Awards, yeah. Sorry.
It was the Doritos Popes Game Awards thing.
Yeah, and that was 2018, if I'm remembering the year correctly. If you really want to know, just you can search that on YouTube.
No, you don't really want to know. The
You
guy's a
don't.
tool.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll make you cringe inside out.
It is not watchable without having your finger on the skip forward button.
Yeah.
Cannot be done.
Well, I guess if
say-
you're like a self-loathing ultra left progressive, you might actually really enjoy it.
Maybe?
Well, I mean that's basically like going to church. He's a venerated saint by their standards.
Yeah, they have a funny way of carrying out beatification. But
Speaking of which, I think your boy did something again.
Oh, no.
I don't like thinking about what he does. It's why I stay far away from Vatican politics. Like I long to go back to the days where 99.5% of the Catholic population of the world didn't even know who the Pope is.
It's just
It's the same as the United States presidency, though, right? It's like turning positions of importance into celebrities changes the sorts of people that you get.
Yep.
you might occasionally get somebody that's there because he thinks he has good ideas and is willing to listen to other people. If you don't make them, a cult of personality.
The cult of Francis is very, very disturbing. It's just as bad as the cult of Obama was. It's really... Ugh. Anyway, laying that aside, I don't think I have much else to talk about on my week because I didn't do all that much. I would have very much liked to play some more PSO2 with these other two, but they always find other things to do, like spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on VR equipment.
Yeah, why don't you talk about that, Ari?
Okay, we'll ride this segue out. So
Wasn't so much a segue as a bus that you were thrown under.
So I was doing some shopping around for stuff yesterday or the day before that. I can't remember. This week's
You got
always
a
just
funny way
off.
of doing some shopping for stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it was when I came across a 1078 gigabyte video card that was half off. It was
Nice.
Like from a vendor or from second hand or what?
it was some third party retailer that was going through Amazon.
Right.
It was in the box new though, and they had one left. And so I hummed and hawed about it and peeked inside my case because I have a transparent case. You can see inside of it. Make sure it had the right slots and it would fit, and went ahead and bought it. And then I bought a proper Rift S instead of doing the Quest Link thing because that's really starting to get pretty dumb.
Does that mean you can sell off your quests now?
I think I'll keep my Quest because I like VR a lot, and having a portable VR headset would for the games that are on the Quest itself would be, something to do while on a business trip or on quote vacation or something. So I'll probably keep it for that. So yeah, that happened. The rest of my week was scheduled entirely by the U.S. federal tax code as it applies to small businesses.
Yay, it's tax season.
I thought you were done with your taxes.
Federal taxes for small businesses in the U.S. are like those little Russian whatever dolls. You finish them, and then the CPA lady takes them, and then she opens it up, and there's more taxes.
I see.
And there's more forms. Like, oh, you met this arbitrary qualification because of this thing you just filled out on this other form. So in addition to the 940 form you just filled out, I need your 941. Your 1003 form says you meet some other qualification. I need you to go get the Georgia Dole form. And this goes on and on and on and on and on, over and over and over and over again, until she finally told me outright, I think you're finally done at the end of third. So
more blessed words have never been spoken.
Yes, Matryoshka dolls missing now.
Russian nesting dolls, yeah, is the other name for them.
For people who can't pronounce Russian words, which is like everybody who's not Russian.
Yes.
So, oh my goodness. Whoever, if you don't hate the government yet, and you live in the U.S., do taxes for a small business 1 year.
No, thank you.
You will be downright anarchist at the end of it. Because whoever designed this stupid tax code needs to be honestly shot, but I'll settle for fired.
Is this a state or federal tax?
These are federal, and they were due back in April. But Wu flew.
Illegalized federal income tax, IMO.
Agreed.
Well, theoretically, there shouldn't be one, right?
Yep, and Nick's property tax as well. Just have a really high sales tax. That's what a bunch of states have done, and it's worked way better for everybody involved because everybody gets taxed at the same percentage. It just depends on how much you spend. But everybody has more base cash to go around. And inevitably, this always gets them more money, and each person individually doesn't have to deal with 800 pieces of paperwork for taxes, number one. And number two, is able to more accurately judge what the heck they're going to get out of their paycheck and how much to spend it, because they ain't got to try and do math in their head with taxes and ballpark stuff.
One thing that we actually do down in Australia that I'm surprised that Americans don't do, which is just have your prices on the shelf inclusive of tax.
Yeah, that doesn't work in the U.S. because marketing. If you can say you're selling this thing for $9.99, but you don't include tax because you're not going to pay the overhead on the tax for that, then you're going to put a sign up that says it's $9.99.
I know we just illegalized that in Australia and New Zealand. Like you can't advertise a price that is not what will be charged at checkout to take that thing out of the store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of places, when they advertise a product, they just don't put a price on it. Unless they know what it's going to be.
Oh, no, Missy, no. You won't go full Chaz. You'll go the other direction. You'll go anarchist, but you won't go lefty anarchist, I can guarantee you. It will not be to go live in a commune. It'll be to go take down the government for this horrible crime they've made you suffer through.
It's whether you go ANCAP or ANCOM.
Yeah, that was it. I had a brain fart on what I was looking for. We can break down the political alignments for you at some other time, Missing, because people can't see the chat.
I don't think anyone has that sort of functional knowledge of reality to do that.
The point is, small business taxes in the U.S. are horrible and awful, and if you have to do them alone as somebody who is not trained as an accountant and it just does this out of necessity, you're going to hate yourself, and it's going to eat all your free time, and you're going to come home exhausted, and all you will have the energy to do is turn on No Man's Sky, do something completely brainless, and turn on a history textbook until you fall asleep. This is literally all I did all week.
I don't understand why it's necessary. Like, let's say that you're absolutely hell-bent on having income tax. Why can't it just be, oh well, okay, you're going to be charged tax at 10% of your income? Like, why do you have to fill in 5 billion forms for it?
I don't know. Well, I accept that at the end of every month I have to report sales tax to the state. That is a business taxable. I accept that as a thing. Mm-hmm. Yearly state tax. I get it. It's one form. I fill it out. I tell them how much we made in profit, how much our supplies cost, and how much we made in raw dollary dues. And they say, you owe us this many dollary dues for business operating taxes. And I say, okay, Georgia, here you go. Federal government seems to just have arbitrary crap that they ask you for that may or may not determine some other form they need you to fill out, which may or may not point you towards a number you need for a form you had 3 forms ago.
Sounds about right for federal.
Have you ever watched the film The 12 Tasks of Asterix?
No.
Basically, the titular character and his good buddy Obelix are tasked with performing 12, nigh impossible tasks, basically, involving things like, oh, well, you've got to defeat the world's strongest man, or you've got to beat the world's fastest sprinter in a race, that type of thing. But one of them is just to retrieve a particular tax form from the Inland Revenue Department.
Yeah, that's the one they have the most trouble with.
Yeah.
A lot of the other stuff they just cheat for, but you can't cheat on your tax forms.
Yeah,
well, they did cheat in the end, sort of.
Sort of.
Yeah, what they did in the end to get through the challenge was that they asked at the inquiries window for a tax form that wasn't the one they actually wanted, but was one that they just made up, and they got the entire place going crazy looking for how you actually find this form and fill it in.
Yeah. Man, you people that go to school for accounting, I thought I was a masochist. You people need to be on suicide watch.
I did accounting 1 year in high school.
Did you want to kill yourself after it?
No, it was actually very, very low levels of accounting are actually kind of useful, because mostly what they teach you is how to read things like balance sheets and financial statements and that sort of thing. So it's more sort of like general knowledge than it is like, oh, well, this is how you do accounting and taxes.
Okay.
So high school, very low level of... Yeah, it's more sort of a life skill thing than it is accountancy.
Yeah. You know how I had to learn accounting? Hey, the accountant lady's not working here anymore. The government's sending me emails how they're mad we haven't filed stuff. Can you just stare at it until you figure it out?
That sounds productive.
This question was never asked, but it was something that needed doing. And so that methodology is how I learned how to do all this, is just beat my head against it until it started working.
Yeah.
To be fair, that's how I approach most problems in life.
True. Admittedly, it is a tried and true method of getting things done.
If you want to learn something really well, there's no better way to do it.
Yep.
So yeah, I really just played a little bit of No Man's Sky. I feel like I made a lot of progress in it, but I was so zonked out while I was playing, I honestly had no clue what I was even doing. I just kind of was gathering stuff and following checklists. So I did find the dead planet, and with the little space monsters on it, and literally just rocks and nothing else, and just named it Biden's brain, dug a hole in the ground, and built a base in the hole in the ground.
Yeah, I think that planet type's new, because I cannot say I've ever actually found one of those.
So that was one of my other bases. I made another base on a nice continental planet that has a big continent and a big ocean. And I made it right on the coast. Oh, I made it on an island that's directly off the coast. And then that was fun, and I learned how the wiring and power works.
Are you doing this all in VR?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's reaching through his own head a unrecommended number of times.
I'm getting stuck under the stairs.
Yes.
Yeah, that happens. Don't even attempt inclines in No Man's Sky VR.
Oh dear, is that bad?
If you move in a Y direction down, so you look down slightly, that translates as you shifting the character model below the stairs, and your hitbox for the stairs is your feet. So if you shift slightly, you fall through the stairs.
Oh, fun. So just teleport to the top of the stairs.
Yeah, just activate the jetpack and just hop over over where you need. Don't attempt stairs. Stairs are bad for you in VR.
Alright, let's make this little monster worse.
So yeah, I'm excited to get the new graphics card for VR. I've really fallen in love with VR. I really have a lot of fun with it. So being able to play it without the chug or the minimal settings will be nice, and also it won't sound like my current poor baby 1060 is about to catch on fire every time I have to load an intensive part of any game.
Is it wheezing a little bit, is it?
Oh, it starts whirring like a boss.
It's got the coof.
Oh, you get to a heavy particle area in Half-Life Alyx, or you load your base in No Man's Sky after you've made an entire arboreum full of plants you can harvest, and the graphics card just goes like a vacuum cleaner. So upgrading that thing hopefully will make it so it's not sounding like it's going to die every time I load something that's that intense.
All right.
So looking forward to that. Although, yeah. So, well, I'll talk about that other thing after I do some other stuff next week. But yeah, I really didn't do that much. It was tax catch-up day, or tax catch-up week. I hate the federal government.
That's something you really probably shouldn't say in public, but never mind.
No. I'm in the U.S. There's a whole
allowed to.
There's a whole half of one wing of the political spectrum in the U.S. that openly hates the federal government. It's kind of our shtick.
Yeah. I suppose it's Australia's shtick as well. We just hate it in general and in principle.
I'm okay. I tolerate the state government because they're the ones that actively interfere in my life to make sure that society works and plays by rules. The federal government is, as far as I can tell, just there to take my money and make me have to do a whole lot of BS because they like paper.
They do like paper. Alright, let me see. That's suitably abominable. Good grief.
Can we get out of 2020? Can we skip to 2021?
What
I
if
don't
things
even-
just get worse? What if we're just at the top of the slope?
Then we're doomed either way, I suppose.
It's accelerationism time.
Yeah.
Me and the opossum have, I'm not joking, drawn out battle plans for what happens if the office gets raided.
Well, I mean,
Likely?
that's actually a clear and present danger when you happen to be just outside of Atlanta.
Yeah, like as soon as Atlanta broke down and all the cops quit, we had a aerial photo of his house in the home office, and we worked out what places we could bunker and fortify, and where we could stick everybody else who isn't going to be out there shooting people.
Oh boy.
Welcome to Georgia.
Welcome to Georgia. Oh wow, this is horrendous.
And that's really it. Oh, I painted a fence. That happened.
Just paint a fence.
Yeah, this morning at 8 o'clock, I'm up and dressed and gonna have a normal day, and my dad's like, "Oh, my legs are killing me, and I can't paint the fence. Can you go do it?" Because he'd been painting the fence all the past few days, so I took over today and painted half the
How
fence.
much fence do you have?
The fence goes across the entirety of the opossum's property, the entirety of my property, and all the way into the neighbor's horse area until their horse fence starts.
Couldn't you just hire one of them itinerant workers?
You make it sound so salacious when you say it that way.
Oh, what's that? We have one that we have on call. What's his name? He's got some wackadoodle name.
Right.
He's got some nickname, but I forget what it is. But yeah, could have called him. Could have paid him $10 and he'd have done it in an afternoon. But no. My dad had to do this himself because the Wu flu lockup and his business deciding that everybody can work from home now is just driving him nuts.
Right.
So he needs projects to do.
Alright, we should probably take a break then.
Yep. Here's some music. We'll be back with something.
Maybe.
And we're back.
Yes, indeedy.
Missy No says, let us not forget, 2022 will be 2022. 2 as in as well.
Yes.
It's not really. It doesn't really work if you explain the joke, Aristeel.
Well, it's a text joke.
It
So
is a text
if,
joke.
if they can't read it, the context can get lost.
Alrighty. So, we should find a news to talk about. And unfortunately, the news has been dominated by something we don't want to talk about this week.
Yeah.
Before anybody ever talks about anymore.
That Metacritic is garbage. Let's go with that.
The more you try to force me to accept something, the more I want to fight against it.
I think most people are like that to a certain extent. It just depends on the angle of attack. It's I don't know. The idea with Metacritic should always have been that, well, we'll just leave well enough alone. We're an aggregator.
Yeah. But they can't because there's money.
Yep, and they are more than that, Metacritic is the determiner of funding for how much these companies can pay for advertising.
Instead of dancing around it, let's just dive straight in. Last of Us 2 came out. And people hate it because the story is garbage.
Hands up who's surprised.
Hang on. I can't edit my creature here. He's got his hands up as it is.
Oh, he's the only one with his hands
He is
up.
the only one with his hands up, so your only supporter is
Well,
some weird little
he was
pink
literally
formation.
born earlier today.
Yes, and...
Last of Us 2 was literally before his time.
Is that okay, Boomer? But, alright. So yeah, there is, of course, whenever the a AAA game gets a very harsh and critical welcome from the public, you get the usual media circus of the journalists saying, oh, everybody is just wrong because they hate it.
Yeah, stop it. You guys have the wrong opinion. You're not allowed.
Don't you see how stunning and brave it is?
Look at Druckmann and all the money he gave us so we could advertise his game. Be nice to him so he makes another one and gives us that money again.
And
Well,
please,
I mean,
please,
that
Druckmann,
is-
we gave you the right opinions, so don't take us off your early access list.
yeah. If we want to be dignified about it, we can't go and say, oh, well, they were paid for these reviews, because that's not how it works. It is access journalism.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's access journalism, so they don't need to pay.
Yeah, the
Because
payment's implicit.
when all you're doing is regurgitating the correct opinions, it's because that's what you have to do in order to get access to the material you need in order to regurgitate the opinions. Like it's sort of like bureaucratic work in that basically the objective is to generate more work for yourself. It doesn't serve any purpose. Like the games journalism exists to facilitate the continued existence of games journalism and for no other purpose. I mean, you can say, oh well, there's ideological injections in it, and that's certainly the case. However, that's not part of the driving force except by agreement with particular persons. The point here is that they aren't getting paid to give their reviews. You can't actually accuse them directly of that. However, they are paid in the sense that they get to retain their job.
Yes. So yeah, everyone's hating the story because ultimately, and let's just say, spoilers for those who care. That's not us. We don't care. Joel dies like a chump. And then...
Basically, it's naff. The story is just naff.
Incredibly naff. But they kill off the much-loved protagonist of the first game, which everyone liked him. He had his reasons for doing things. And then they make you play as the killer for 2-3 hours, however long, immediately afterwards.
Now, I think it's sort of interesting how mainstream the hatred of it has gone, and that the narrative has gotten away from you when PewDiePie hates it, because if PewDiePie hates it, then everybody that follows PewDiePie will hate it as well.
Yeah.
And that is not a small number of people.
It is not a small number. It is quite a large number.
Oh, they tried to cancel him over hating it.
Well, people have tried to cancel him so many times now, he just doesn't care.
Yeah, he's he is completely immune to it at this
He
point.
has FU money.
He does.
He's like Trump in that sense. Like he can say what he wants because nobody can make him poor.
No, it doesn't matter. They can't cancel him anymore. He's beyond reach.
And they could take away all his jobs, and he would still have FU money.
Yes.
But the thing is, they can't really take away all his jobs now because he's reached that sort of too big to fail point.
Yeah. So, in the process of things, we got the usual thing. The customers used the only two methods of getting a message across that they have. First is with the wallet. Unfortunately, too many people still bought it. So they went to the other one, which is negative reviews on Metacritic. Lots of them. And yeah, there's a lot of people who just made an account and gave it a 0.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they tried to purge reviews and it ended up lowering the score even further. So it's not just that there are people making accounts to put 0s. There are people making accounts to put 10s.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there were people that wrote full legitimate complaints about this game in the thing they couldn't justify just deleting on the grounds they had put forward. But a whole lot of people had said, it's just the Russian bots that are lowering the score. And there were more people saying it's just the Russian bots lowering the score, trying to up the score. So when they deleted all these people that had made these one-off accounts to go fudge with the numbers on this game, it wound up being a net. Yeah, the score went down. It was a net negative for them.
Russia has some very strange geopolitical concerns.
Yes.
Yep. I'm here to tell you, they got the most sentient bots on the planet.
They also has.
Well, I mean, even bots need to play video games sometimes to wind down.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. So yeah, the whole thing has been an absolute clown circus with Naughty Dog and namely Druckmann out in full force saying, no, you just don't understand the story. It's woke baiting and things like that. Thing is, I've not seen anyone actually decrying the game because of the progressive elements of it.
I mean, people have laughed at it because it's so transparent, but they don't consider that to be a detracting feature of the game because while you might reasonably consider it to be that given the current climate, it's also quite reasonable to say that is such a small factor comparatively speaking when it comes to listing the number of things that are terrible about this game that you're wasting your time talking about that even if you hate it.
Yeah.
Because the better way to cut the game down would be to talk about the things that matter.
Of which there are many. Mostly awful writing, terrible pacing, and characters acting completely nonsensically.
From all that I've heard about it, it's very much a situation where the characters have been taken from what they were and then reduced into one-dimensional caricatures of themselves to be moved around by some amateur who doesn't know what they're doing. Like, and that's the thing, right? This is the sort of, you know how people sometimes write horrible fan fiction where terrible things happen to characters simply because they want to put their stamp on the way characters should have been interpreted. Like this is Neil Druckmann writing Last of Us fan fiction where he, ruins everything because, he wants his magnum opus. He wants to tell his story the way he thinks it should be. And that's ultimately why he's so mad, because he takes every criticism of this game personally, because he injected so much of himself, literally and figuratively, into this game that he can't not take it personally. It is an indictment of him if people say that the game is bad, that its ideas are bad, that its writing is bad, that its narrative presentation is bad, and that, there's nothing redeemable about it from the narrative perspective. That hurts him because it's all his. All that stuff is his. He takes it personally. The parts of the game that people celebrate, they aren't worth anything to him because he wasn't involved in those, because those are all technical achievements.
Yep. And he lives clearly based on the story he told. He lives in a world with no forgiveness. Like, this concept is alien to him. And so anybody that does not like him forever. Man, that's got to really weigh on him, knowing that he is got so many people in his, well, at least he thinks, that are going to hate him for the rest of their lives, and that's going to be their sole focus.
Well, that's why he tells himself that those are all moral derelicts. That they're not real people. They're immoral people. Is one of the things that his particular far left quadrant is very keen on, is the idea that a person who has the wrong opinions doesn't have human rights. Like they need not be considered a person if they don't have the right opinion. There's none of this idea that rights are intrinsic to you. You can lose your human rights simply by having the wrong opinion. And since he's a believer in that type of thinking, he can just tell himself repeatedly that, oh, well, people that don't agree that my game is the best thing ever, they're not real people, therefore their opinions don't matter. Unfortunately, bank accounts don't follow that logic. And stock prices don't follow that logic. Nobody is actually interested in that logic. That logic exists just to stroke egos. And, that type of ego stroking, sometimes it does result in 100 million deaths. But when it comes to the business world, it never makes you any money.
No.
Yeah, at the end of the day, your job is to give the customers something that they want to give you money for.
That's the strange thing about a lot of these ventures, though. Like, they never seem to remember that actually people buy things that they want. They don't buy things because you tell them to. I know that they live in a world where you can, stand on a soapbox and designate something as the good thing to do, and therefore everybody will run and do it. Therefore, your game doesn't need to be bad because all you need to do is say, oh, well, you have to buy it to be virtuous. But that never plays out in real life. And most of the people that hold the purse strings traditionally have recognized that.
People will do it if it costs them nothing.
Yeah, people need money, and they have got a limited amount of it to go around.
Especially after the government took away everybody's jobs.
And so you're going to spend that money on the things that you want, not the things that people tell you have to want.
Yeah, it's and sometimes if you really have a good idea with a political message for a video game, sure, okay, make your own franchise and make your own game. Why you gotta always?
Nobody will mind. There's lots of games that have political slants to them. Lots of games that have political discussions and arguments and whatnot. But people like them enough to buy them. Like, there are some really absolutely effing reprehensible people that worked on Disco Elysium. Like, politically reprehensible people who think that Stalin and Mao are great guys. But people liked that game, even though it was loaded with political messaging. So people bought it and played it. Yeah, because it was what they wanted to do. They wanted to play this game.
It was still a good story, well told, and a good fun game.
Well, and these companies do not understand this thing. They think they can attach these woke ideas to franchises that have no roots or basis for these ideas, and just be like, okay, the franchise now follows these politics, when it fundamentally changes every character in the setting when you do it. That's what people get ticked off about. They don't care what politics it was. This could be the total opposite end of the spectrum's politics being injected. If you change the way characters that people love behave and act because you have some great vision of how the world should work, they're not going to be happy with your product, and you're going to get the outrage every single time.
Hollywood has spent years churning out their own particular brand of propaganda, and they've gotten a lot worse at it in recent years because they've run out of ideas. But it used to be that they would create politically loaded media, and then they would mass market it to people. But these days, the people that are doing it, they don't have the creative spark required to come up with ideas on their own, so they're always trying to piggyback on somebody else's property in order to get it done. And this is what we're seeing here. Like, there was an interview with a guy. I don't remember the exact scenario, since I'm just coming up with this on the fly and passing. But there was an interview with a guy who had worked with Druckmann on, I think it was the last of the Uncharted games, or something. 4. And the one that had gone woke.
Yeah.
It was all about glorifying the female character and making the original main character look like a tool.
He is kind of a tool, but that's not the point.
Yeah, but he wasn't a tool because he was incompetent and deserved to be humiliated in every possible situation due to just a lack of fitness in general. That was not
No,
that was
he was
not
a
the
tool
scenario.
because he was a tool.
Yeah, that was a personality trait of his. It was not a case that he had no personality traits except being a tool.
Yeah.
The guy, I don't remember what his position was, but he said that they ousted the writer, the original writer, in order to reforge it in accordance with Druckmann's vision, and that basically he hijacked the entire project as a way of carrying out his will.
Yeah.
It wasn't his project. He took it from the person who was originally working on it, probably Hennig.
It would have been Hennig, yeah.
He took it from her because he wanted to forge his own image into it. So this is not a new thing for Druckmann at all. This is the way he does business. He can't come up with ideas on his own. He'll find somebody else's project, some other IP. He will hijack it and parasitize it with his viewpoint. It's like he is the exact incarnation of what you shouldn't do.
And
And it's quite telling that while Hennig's team worked on that game for quite a while, so it wasn't a complete failure. However, most people do view it as the worst one.
Yeah,
and because it's contaminated.
The analogy of an infection for this kind of garbage has never been more apt. Because they don't try to put it in their own stories anymore. They have to ruin something else. Like, they have to go, okay, we're going to infect Last of Us. We're going to infect Star Wars. We're going to infect Vampire the Masquerade. We're going to infect every other franchise under the sun that I can't pull out the top of my head. And
the thing that the people who make these things are not willing to acknowledge is that once they do that, it is no longer necessary to critique the political content because they will do such a shoddy job of putting together the basic product that it becomes unnecessary to criticize them on that count. Yep.
Because their focus will always be their politics first and the game or the product or the IP second.
Yeah, like you are not entitled to the money of the people who are fans of an IP. You have to earn it every time. At no point does that become free. At no point does it become a given.
And what we always see with this, and what has been historically playing out, is when you infect a franchise with this stuff, you get people's money once, and it's still less than what you would have made if you didn't infect it. And then, if you try to keep the gravy train going, you've killed the IP. See Star Wars for the best example. You have poisoned it to a point where it's not tenable.
Yeah, all of the people who were fans, who were really committed to Star Wars, it's pretty much dead to them now. The more people loved the original Star Wars, the more revolted they are with the new one, generally speaking. And that's not something that you can get back. The people that that loved it, that had really bought into it, like that buy-in is gone. And the people that like the new ones because they haven't thought too deeply about it or whatever, I mean, those people, they're not committed. They're not going to buy huge amounts of merch. None of the merch sells for the new Star Wars. None of it.
Nope.
It all ends up being in the bargain bins. Whereas Star Wars toys were a hot ticket item when I was growing up.
Yeah, even through the 90s.
Long time, yeah.
I remember one Christmas, I got a life-size R2-D2 as my big Christmas present when I was real little.
Holy damn. I would have killed for that as a kid.
He beeped and booped if you push buttons, too. He would talk to you.
And Missing No brings up again the comics industry. Like they sort of in the terminal stage, right? Like you can't go back from where they are now when they're creating things like the New Warriors. And when I say comic books industry, that doesn't mean necessarily comic books in general, because as a medium, the independents are doing pretty well. They tend to earn a lot more money per title than the big dogs do. But
but DC and Marvel have just been so infected with this cancer. DC tried to go on chemo for a little bit, and it looked pretty good, but the cancer came back, and we saw what happened.
Yeah, you can't do these things to things people love and expect no backlash. It's nonsensical to act that way.
Like oh, I don't like what they're from the normies' perspective, because we follow this stuff more closely than the normies will. But the normies gonna go, oh look, an Iron Man comic. They did what? That isn't Iron Man. come back the next week. Oh, they're really going with this. That wasn't a one shot. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna read something else.
Oh, come on. Remember the biggest one, like, of recent memory? It's, why is Captain America a member of Hydra now?
They tried to pull out of that nosedive real hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they tried to play it off like, oh well, we never intended to go that way. But I don't believe that for a
Nobody
second. I
believes
think
that.
they really did intend to just demonize that character because ultimately that character stands for values that they don't hold. Like, I mean, say what you like about American exceptionalism, it's still something that is it's supposed to have a good effect. Generally speaking, it's supposed to make you love and value something above yourself and the values that it promotes. And they're always, as far as Captain America is concerned, they've always been pretty wholesome values. Like he's an even more banal good guy of a superhero at times than Superman. But
Superman's original title was, or original thing he stood for was truth, justice, and the American way.
Yeah, but that default assumption that there was something inherently good about America is the thing that America's current political left is desperate to undermine. They don't want anybody to think that there's anything worth conserving in their nation. That's why they're repainting everything to be, oh well, America is not a good project. It is a racist project. That's their whole shtick is based on that, and they will use whatever vehicle that pop culture allows in order to try and communicate that message. But the thing is, people already know who Captain America is. No amount of comics where you make him a Nazi is going to convince anybody that Captain America is a Nazi or that the values that Captain America holds are National Socialist German Workers' Party values. That's not possible. You can't do that. And there's no situation in which it's successful. It's one of those things about pop culture in the information age is that you can't black someone out on the way things were before anymore. As much as Wikipedia tries to rewrite the past and so on, it's just not something that you can do within reason. And they're going to learn it the hard way. They're going to learn it the hard way that you can't push all the way with these things. And I don't see any reason to believe that Marvel and DC are going to be in business in 5 years' time.
They're already running at a deficit just from what they got. Like they cannot sell their books for the life of them.
And it's sad, really, because of the people that it'll bring down with them. Like, all those local comic shops and that. Like, none of those were they weren't mega money stores. They were passion projects for the people that owned them, and they're all going to go down. It's all due to the terrible political decisions of these major publishers.
And it's really sad because a lot of these hobby shops expanded out into other stuff and would use that consistent revenue from comic book pre-orders, and because the way you would order comics is you would check off which ones you wanted at the when the first of the month or the next week came out, and you would just go pick them up, and they would have them prepackaged and ready for you, and you would have already paid for it. And they would have just this consistent revenue stream, so they could expand into other stuff and use that as the money.
When you talk about expanding for a comic book store, though, this is not expanding the way Amazon expands. This means like, oh, we'll be able to stock an additional title now. Oh, we might be able to put in a small manga section. That type of thing.
Yeah,
that's about the limit of it. None of these were very, very profitable businesses because they did it out of love, and that's all been taken away from them now. First by the incipient wokeness, then by the coof, which really destroyed a bunch of them.
The coof is killed so many small businesses.
And now that they've decided they're going to go absolutely all in on the wokeness, such that they will attempt to release products such as the New Warriors, which you could not write a parody that ridiculous.
Chad Thunder, the best name from the parody of the parody of the official endorsed parody.
If I hadn't seen the video of the people who made it, I would have assumed that it was somebody who was just taking the piss.
Yep. Well,
Like,
we just had proof that this is not a joke. These people actually are this insane. We just had the Chaz.
yep, they actually think that society can work that way. But yeah, so to bring this all the way back around, Neil Druckmann is just, you know, the latest pustule on this phenomenon, the latest boil to plague the body of nerd culture. Like, it's just he's going to do his little bit to try and corrupt a medium, and you know, it's hard to say how successful it will be. I don't think we've actually ever seen any whole media completely implode over this yet, not in an irretrievable fashion, but they certainly have done themselves no favors, and you can see everybody's competing to do the same thing, like Magic the Gathering that we discussed a little while back.
They fired somebody for liking a post by somebody who the person who did the firing didn't agree with the politics of.
Yeah, and you can do that. The funny thing is that a lot of the people who are doing this type of thing, they aren't actually in at-will employment states.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which I think is very funny, because it's merely reprehensible in a place with at-will employment. It's reprehensible and hypocritical in a place that doesn't have at-will employment.
And also illegal.
Yeah, but there's nobody's going to enforce it because of the type of places that they are. But
It's just worth noting how bad the double standard is, whether or not it gets enforced.
Yeah, at any rate, from what I've heard, Games Workshop is just as bad. They're just as far down the rabbit hole as any of the others.
Yeah, I do not know what convinced these idiots that they have to pander this hard.
Well, it's the new religion, though, right?
It must be.
It's not some door-to-door salesman. It's this culture that they're steeped in. Like, they say that we're in a third phase of cultural development now. The way things have operated in the past, like the old culture was the honor culture, right? Your social acceptability was based on honor. It was external to yourself, and you would have to do what was necessary to preserve that honor. You would have to behave in an honorable way and be honored by other people in order to have social standing. And that progressed on from that point into a virtue culture, where it was the inherent virtue of your actions that determined their worth, and you did not receive the validation from outside. It was based on what you knew the good to be, and that you lived your life in accordance with it, and society was structured under the assumption that people had a shared set of values and everybody sought virtue. The new phase that we're moving into is sort of an inverted honor culture called the shame culture, where everything is about, you know, the things that are sources of shame, shaming other people, dissociating yourself as rapidly as possible from anyone who is being shamed in order to prevent the shame from bleeding onto yourself. And then virtue signaling is basically the mechanism that you use to ensure you don't get grouped with a shame group.
Yep.
And society will then be structured around who can be denounced for what. And so it's just going to be mutual denunciations all around, which is pretty much the worst imaginable way to organize a society.
Well, it's even worse than that, because while that is evil and reprehensible and absolutely terrible, we also that type of society breeds an environment of lies by its nature, because you are incentivized.
Yeah, well, you've got the purity spiral. You have to be more pure than the next guy in order to make sure that they won't come for you first.
Yeah,
and then use the time that you buy to find somebody else that you can put in their place when they go down as the proxy.
So we live in this fantasy world where everybody's own subjective world is layered on top of it, and they are willing to lie even if their fantasy world doesn't mesh with what's happened. So they'll just say, oh yeah, this guy raped me in college, this Brett Kavanaugh evil monster, except I wasn't at that party at all, but he totally did at that party. Yeah, and it's put us in this weird situation as people that are, for the most part, immune to this kind of shame stuff, just because it ain't going to bug any of us. You can call us idiots, and I don't think any of us are going to lose any sleep over it. We're going to laugh at you. But whenever we discuss the culture of the day, there's an underlying current of okay, but what's actually true and what's actually happening? Who's lying to us? And
Well,
we have
that operates on the presumption that you believe there's such a thing as truth, and postmodernism holds that there isn't. There's only the narrative.
But yeah, so whenever we discuss modern events, me and Vol do this a lot. The conversation will inevitably come to the conclusion somebody lied, because that's the solution.
It's true. The problem is that the problem with that is that they don't recognize lying as a thing. In a lot of cases, it's a matter of like everything. They believe very sincerely on the far left that there is no truth, there is only narrative. Fundamentally, you can make something true simply by chanting over and over again. That's why they're so obsessive about their mantras. Because if you say something over and over again, it won't just be what you believe. That's the way conventional creeds work. In postmodernism, saying something over and over again and making sure people hear it and making sure that it's the dominant message, that makes it true. Because narrative has the value of truth in their way of thinking. That's a very, very sort of superstitious, magical way of thinking that they've got. That if you can say something enough times, it will be true. Because their version of true means the most told story.
Yeah, and it's just it is not a fun culture to live in. We cannot have objective discussions with these people. They cannot be reasoned with anymore. They've reached a point where it doesn't matter what we say to them. It used to be I would try to find ways to talk to these people and figure out how they think and get a way to weasel in and go, that's not really true. You're being sold a lie. But the problem is they don't care.
Yeah, their basic premises are different. Their basic premises are not the pursuit of truth, which is, what the pursuit of classical virtue is founded on the pursuit of truth. But if you believe that there is no truth, there is only narrative, there's only the story that is told and enough people that tell it, that's what creates the truth ultimately. I mean, you can always tell these people, right? The moment that you hear somebody use the phrase "my truth," you know what you're dealing with. And you hear it a lot these days.
And somebody that utters that phrase cannot be reasoned with at all. They should be written off immediately. You are wasting your time.
Yeah, they won't ever be able to change their way of thinking unless something causes them to hit rock bottom for some reason. And then they can't depend on all the things that they've depended on before.
Yeah, one of their allies would have to literally lock them in a basement and cut off all their fingers before they might start considering that they were wrong.
Well, at that point, then you're going to get to the situation where they'll just develop the Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah,
so that might not help. But yeah, and Druckmann is one of these people, right? He hasn't entertained yet the idea that his game might not be perfect. He hasn't entertained yet that there might be any validity to any of the complaints that have been made. That's why they leap to the bot thing, right? Because they don't believe that people that disagree with them are people. It couldn't be. Because in their world, it's simply true that their woke product is great, and that if they don't agree with them, all they need to do to make it true that there are no people that disagree with them is to make the narrative that those aren't people. So if they say they're bots, they're bots, they're bots, they're bots, they're bots over and over again, eventually the narrative will be everybody likes Last of Us 2.
Yeah, and it's also playing to, I don't think they do this part intentionally, but if they repeat a lie enough to themselves, even if they're not convinced by it and get no new evidence, just saying something over and over again makes you more likely to believe it, even if you know it's not true.
Oh, no, that's the thing is that they don't believe in truth. If they repeat something over and over to themselves and then end up believing it, that's just part of the way it's done. That's part of the project. You could see this when you remember Ian Miles Cheong? He's like Red Pill Supreme now. But he was not Red Pill Supreme when Gamergate hit. And he was one of the only cases that we've ever been privileged to see where somebody has been right in the belly of the beast and has come out of it. And he came out of it from his own account. He came out of it through self-reflection, where he looked back at the things that he'd written and realized that he'd become a monster. But he talked about what he was doing, and he said that he was actively, consciously mind-killing, as he called it, any thoughts that contradicted the narrative. If he suddenly had a stray thought that didn't agree with the message that he was pushing, he would castigate himself for it and stop thinking it.
Yeah, and you can. There's a really easy barometer for for anybody listening personally, to tell if they're starting to slip into this mindset. Just since we're in this type of culture, and it's if you are presented with new information on something you hold sacred, is your immediate response, "No, that's not true," or is it, let me go look at that. I'll check on that one, or something to that effect. If it's the second one, you're still okay. If it's the first one, you might want to take a look at where you're going. Because we get so many people now that just don't listen because it doesn't matter to them. And Druckmann's one of these people. I didn't know that about Eden Niles Chong, actually. I thought he was always Red Pill Supreme.
No, he was deep in the belly of the beast. He was one of the most vociferously anti-GG people that there was. Like, ridiculous levels of SJW hysterics.
Yeah. Then one day he kind of just clammed up for maybe a week.
Yeah, he just sort of disappeared off the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then came back and said, oh dear.
Yeah.
What have I done?
He looked at the person he had become and the number of relationships he destroyed. Like, I don't know if there was like some major tipping point event. It seems kind of likely that there would have been some major tipping point event happened in his personal life that caused him to, look back at what he'd been saying, what he'd been doing. But when he came back to the internet, it was like, he was a different person that you were dealing with. There was no longer hysterical. He was very, very considered in the stuff. He was sort of like openly apologetic, even though he knew that he was burning bridges with his entire previous culture by apologizing to the people that he had wronged, the people that he had meaninglessly slandered. It seems like he really did turn over a genuine new leaf at that point, because he had it bad.
Yeah,
I've never seen anybody else come back the way he did.
Yeah, I've seen. There's been other people who've come out, but none that I've seen from as deep as he was.
Yeah, he gets a top front page, top post at least once a week on the Donald.win.
Yeah.
He used to be the worst of them. He really did. He was one of the loudest anti-GG voices when it really kicked off.
Yeah. And
GG was probably what caused him to come out of there as well. Not because of anything that was involved in Gamergate or any of the stories that came out of it, but the horrible person that it turned him into clued him into the fact that he was part of a cult.
Yeah. I'm trying to find one of his most recent one on the Donald Win, because I'm positive he has one. If I sort by top week, it'll be on the front page.
Yeah, he still does a lot of edge posting. It tends to be more red-pilled edge posting nowadays, but they're not like hysterical the way they once were, and it's not all about trying to savage people that disagree with him. I mean, it seems to me he's probably got a personality that needs to watch out for that sort of narrow-minded thinking, but he seems to be a bit better these days.
Yeah. So the inevitable question here is, what can we do about these people aside from just not giving them money? Like, how can
I think the actual inevitable question is, what genre was our show again?
Politics. Well,
but yeah, the ultimately the I feel like the appropriate thing to do is to just vote with your wallet. However, that's not going to win any cultural battles. I think that realistically, the culture war has more or less been lost in the short term, and that we've just got to buckle down and be very careful about where we put our money, generally speaking.
Yeah, our forces in the culture war are very strong, much stronger than the left's as individual units, but they have no base to return back to. We have no forts or outposts in this battlefield. We're just kind of wandering around. We need to establish some kind of something and have a place where we can broadcast, hey, you post something stupid over here, people will actually forgive you for it in a few weeks.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's sort of very hard to establish new premises like that. I mentioned to Ari today, New Project 2 is closed down. New Project 2 was a alternative alternative Patreon, basically, because Patreon is heavily politically charged. They won't allow their services to anybody who they disagree with politically. If they find out about it, you'll lose your Patreon. And for a lot of content creators on the internet, particularly, that's their major source of income.
So anybody that was not a far left Marxist or drew anime of any kind.
Yeah, because it's all evil. But yeah, so New Project 2 is shut down, and the reason they have shut down is because MasterCard has put them on the blacklist.
Yep.
And this is exactly the thing that has shut down several other competitors to Patreon that have come out in response to Patreon banning people on political grounds, particularly, and they have been shut down by MasterCard. Because if MasterCard puts you on the industry blacklist, you can't do payment processing anymore.
And this
If you're a business like Patreon, a lack of being able to handle money causes problems.
Yeah, if you're a payment processor that cannot receive funds, your business doesn't work.
Yeah. So but this is what I mean when I say it's very hard to establish a new premises to serve as a base in a culture war, because, you know, let's say you decide to open up your alternative thing and then MasterCard decides that they don't really like you, suddenly you can't move money around anymore.
Yeah,
So
you have to rebuild the entire infrastructure that you'd already built and then had seized by this mob again from scratch.
Ultimately, you know, a certain amount of bunker down mentality is necessary, but you can't necessarily act directly. It's best to look. The best thing that you can really do with the limited resources available to combat this kind of thing is to just to really attack with a vengeance the idea of dealing with things with market forces, because that's what everybody has access to. Not everybody can stand on a soapbox and have an effect. Very few people can, in fact, be very effective with a soapbox. Most people just don't have the rhetorical skill, they don't have the audience, they don't have the organizational skill. But market forces is something that everybody is part of. And there are lots and lots of ways, as we are seeing, to affect The Last of Us 2 with market forces. And that's basically, you know, people. This game is probably not going to be a flop because of the amount of recognition that it's got, but it's not. The next Last of Us is not going to sell any.
Yeah, they always get one.
If they ever tried to make a third one, it would collapse.
Yeah, they've effectively filleted the franchise.
But the failure of this is sufficiently large that, much like Star Wars, they will probably never get the green light to do another one.
Yeah, and there are rumors going around that Disney's in such a panic, they're considering labeling all three movies that they just made as an alternate timeline.
That's not going to work. They've already screwed.
No, they've already just pooped all over this bed. The bed is just poop.
It's just entirely poop at this point.
They just replaced the whole bed with poop.
Alright, we've banged on about that long enough. Let's bang on about something else.
But yeah.
How about a games industry that never learns lessons?
Well, that what we were just talking about?
Yeah, that again. So, we had recently a games company that had a hyped up game trailer that they put out in a big presser, and they said, in a week's time, we're going to announce something big. So a week rolled round, and it turns out that they've crawled into bed with Tencent for a mobile port that nobody asked for, which is just a reskin of an existing Tencent IP. Now, this sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Because all anybody does these days for some reason.
Yeah.
I think the CEO of Tencent got labeled as China's richest person recently.
I could believe that.
Well, Tencent pretty much has a stranglehold over everything that involves
any foreign investments. They got their grubby little dongus in it.
Ew.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, it's what they literally rat F every company they touch. So, I mean, it isn't their fingers they got in it.
So, in this case, instead of being Diablo Immortal, which is probably what a lot of people are thinking from that point, no, it was Pokemon Company, and they've made a Pokemon MOBA.
Because this is definitely the product that the Pokemon fandom wants.
This comes the week after Nintendo puts out a kind of a feeler to say, okay, we might be considering getting out of the mobile market.
Oh dear, oh
Thing
dear.
is, just like Diablo Immortal, it didn't have to be this way. Like, they had their the previous week they had their big announcement palooza. Why not put that in there with all the rest of the mobile games? So you've got your little toothbrushing game, and you got your play it on the toilet for a round game. Put this in there, and then when you tease something big, make that Pokemon Snap.
Yeah, I mean, like, how long have people been asking for a new Pokemon Snap?
Yes.
Since the old Pokemon Snap?
Did you ever take your game card to Blockbuster and put it in the machine to print your pictures?
I don't think they had any of those near me.
I forgot that was a thing.
Yeah, you could do that here. We had a Blockbuster real close to us, and I begged my mom to let me do it one time. I did it once.
So, yeah. The backlash, of course, has been exactly the same as it was with Diablo Immortal.
They are very fortunate in that they had Pokemon Snap in the same week to weather the blow. Otherwise, this would have come down a lot harder.
Yes.
Because
unlike Blizzard, they also went on stage.
Yeah, this is like announcing Diablo Immortal alongside Diablo 4.
Yeah.
Which is what everybody thought that they would do.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of people have suspected that was in fact the original plan. And then Diablo 4 got delayed at the last minute, and there was nothing left to absorb the blow.
Do you guys not have phones?
You guys not have phones.
Because that guy was clearly not prepared. He was not prepared.
He was not prepared.
When you have a convention for your company that only fans of your company are going to pay absolutely premium ticket prices for, plus airfare, to come mob, and they're all booing you, you've done something wrong.
You done screwed up. So, just Nintendo, why? Whoops. Oh boy.
So yeah. On the flip side of that, though, the Pokemon Snap announcement went over like rainbows.
Yeah,
everybody loved that.
Everyone loved that.
Like I saw that and I was like, oh, cool, more Pokemon Snap. I can get behind that. That was a fun video game.
Why couldn't Queen and Corgis look that good?
You know what? If they just do good video game, that's all I want.
Instead of half-assed, like Queen
Every
Corgis.
time you say Queen and Corgis, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Sword and Shield. Because it was in Britain. It's the British-inspired Pikaman.
Yes, so it's fish and chips. Tea and crumpets.
Right.
Yeah, all the architecture and all the accents and all the spelling in-game is all British.
I wouldn't say the accents when they'd have voice characters. The accents are doing something. I'm not exactly sure what that is, though.
It is an American localizer's interpretation of what a British person talks like.
Oh, with a major concussion, I take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should see what happens when California tries to localize Southern talk into text.
I've seen it. It ain't pretty.
I've seen y'all spelled 3 different ways in the same video game.
But y'all's a singular.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I do not see any... And anytime you have to localize a Southerner's voice into text or subtitles, the phrase "you all" does not exist unless it was spoken in recorded voice lines.
Yes.
Or all y'all.
All y'all.
All y'all does not exist. All y'all is plural. Y'all is singular or plural, but mostly singular.
I've always heard it as singular. Like I thought that was common knowledge. But it seems my general life experience in my 3.5 nearly decades on this planet has been that if I think something is common knowledge, it's not.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, thankfully, it's not the biggest disaster they've had, but really, Nintendo, why crawl into bed with Tencent?
I mean,
I think I've explained this before, but the reality is that there's too much risk averseness to investment in the Western market now, and because China bucks are fake, they don't have any. They're willing to put money behind ideas that nobody else will put money behind.
Yeah,
They will
and
just bring all that money to the table and they will spend it because it's not real, really. Chinese money is not real. It's not backed by anything other than, literal human flesh and blood, which they
Yeah.
will spend until they can pay off their debts if necessary, which it probably won't even be necessary since everybody is in more debt than China somehow. But it's just because they will bring money to the table when no one else will. There's nobody else but Tencent to back new ideas because everybody's too scared to spend money. There's no way to get investors to, well, how about you spend money on this new IP? Or we could come up with a 57th Call of Duty game when we know that those sell like hotcakes every time. That's just the sound investment, quote unquote, is to do that because people always buy them.
We're just in too volatile of a market, especially, and we're going to see it even worse now because of Wu-Flu and because of cancel culture. People are going to be so risk averse for the next at least 2 years. We probably will have to cherish whatever original IPs that come out that are actually good because there aren't going to be very many of them.
Yeah. Which reminds me, actually, I'm outright offended by the latest PS Plus offering.
What is
I haven't
it?
even looked at it. I've stopped keeping up with them since Farming Simulator.
Oh, this one's worse. It is so much worse. It is a Call of Duty game and Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Oh, Abo made me download Battlefront 2 to try it out with him.
But they fixed that, didn't they? Like, didn't they manage to rehabilitate it?
The third time was the charm. They got it to a functional video game.
Yay! They shouldn't have had it broken like that in the first place.
Yeah, well, nobody releases a finished video game anymore.
You can actually play as all the hero characters from the start, but you have to unlock their abilities now by actually using them.
That's okay.
That is more reasonable than give us money.
Yeah, just give us money. I'm still not going to play that game. Partly because Star Wars is just these days.
It's funny because you can go into matchmaking queues and they're divided by original trilogy, prequel trilogy, or new trilogy.
Oh dear! How empty is the new trilogy?
Like there are maybe 10 games going, and I'm pretty sure that is only because enough people hit I don't care to create 10 game sessions by chance.
Sounds about right.
I think that it is quite possibly physically impossible to feel any affection for any character or storyline in the new trilogy.
The only single scene that is worth any water from the new trilogy is BB-8 giving the lighter thumbs up.
BB-8 is awesome.
And even that's just like, oh, well.
That's a moment.
BB-8 only exists because they needed R2-D2, but they couldn't put R2-D2 in there because that would be giving too much respect to the previous incarnation of the story. I mean, that's the other thing, right, that you can see in a commonality between Last of Us 2 and the new Star Wars is that it's not enough to pass the torch. They have to denigrate, have to ruin it, have to humiliate it.
Well, these people, I think these people genuinely develop contempt for the product the more they work on it with their sequel to it that they've infected, because their idea is just so much better, you see.
Yeah,
and they genuinely think this.
Not only do they have to parasitize other people's work, but number one, they find a lot of the values of that work repugnant. And number two, they never had any affection for it to begin with. Like, a lot of them brag about, in fact, not liking Star Wars, the people that worked on the new ones. And you see that a lot with the new comic writers as well. You know, the ones they hand over to a new person to make the new woke version, and they'll say like, "Oh, I had to do a lot of research to find out what Batman was about."
Yeah, that's usually a bad sign.
Yeah, Scarecrow was a main villain in any of the movies. I know he's really popular in the comics and back in the animated TV series, but I didn't know about him because I only saw The Dark Knight. So I had to do like 10 hours of research on this character. That was a real interview with somebody, by the way. That happened. They didn't know who Scarecrow was.
Oh boy.
Yep.
All right, we're running out of time. So, anything else to quickly move on to?
What else happened this week?
Honestly,
If,
not too much. It was all overshadowed by denial of reality.
Yeah. I'll leave them with this coming off these heavier topics. While voting and using market forces is good, in this day and age, for your own safety, please practice in steeling yourself against this cancel culture garbage and learn to not care or don't
Because
participate.
it will come for you. If it keeps going, it will come for you sooner or later. If you hold anything to be true, it will come for you.
Yeah, there is no avoiding that. Protect yourself by putting yourself in both the mindset to not care what these people think or what people say about you, and practice action in a way where if you do get attempted to be, or somebody does attempt to cancel you, you have a method to shake it off. Call these people out when they do it. Call them liars and hypocrites to their face immediately.
Ultimately, you need to know what you believe in if you're going to hold up against the things that other people believe in. You need to know what you think is true and stick to it. Because they're going to tell you that the things that you think are important are not important.
And more importantly than that, you need to know why you believe it, which is something the current culture does not teach you. That is something that does not have value in our current society. But if you want to be able to stand up to this type of garbage, you have to know why you believe what you believe. And I don't mean like because it's my political party reason. I mean, what is the core root philosophy that you live life by, and why do you think that's right? If you can't answer those questions fairly detailed, you need to figure it out real fast, because it's your best defense against all this garbage.
Right, so I guess we'll whip through what's left here on the list. Commander Keen mobile game appears to be cancelled.
Yay!
Good riddance. This is another attempt to sodomize a childhood memory in order for a quick buck.
Yes.
Although I can't imagine how that product would get a quick buck.
The only people who would actually buy it are the impulse buyers or people who remember the original Commander Keen. But then the people who like the original Commander Keen would see what they've done with it.
They're 40 years old and they don't have phones.
And they don't have
Hey,
phones.
I grew up playing Commander Keen and I have a phone. But yeah. They also know that there was no girl in Commander Keen.
Oh, this is supposedly the original Commander Keen's kids.
Yeah, I know, but the original Commander Keen's kids were already documented, and they did not include this.
2 little clones.
Well, it wasn't. There's already he already has like a canonical son or something like that. I can't remember the details.
I can't remember.
But there weren't a pair of twin siblings. That's not a thing. That's something they made up in order to meet their quota of female characters. Like it's all right to have a character with a game with a male protagonist character. It just is.
That's not anymore.
I'm sorry. It doesn't matter what you think about that.
I mean, if they were pretty ladies who were cramming into all these games, I probably wouldn't complain so much.
The ultimately thing is, I don't care if they're not there. Like, I don't care if the protagonist is a male and there's only a male, and I don't care if if the protagonist is supposed to be a female and is a female. None of that matters. The problem is when you leave the fingerprints of I just need to distort the existing history in order to fit this in here because I know that way I can check a box. That sort of stuff, it smells like bullshit.
Remember all the kids shows in the 90s that used to have the token handicap guy?
No.
Yeah, that was a thing.
Or the token black guy, or the token girl, and the token Middle Easterner and or Asian.
I mean, even if you say that, like that sort of thinking, it makes sense if they're a token because there's only going to be one of them by proportion in the population.
Yeah, so it's it rings that kind of tone when
everybody like everybody saw that like even very little kids could see that that Captain Planet was just supposed to be the hippie UN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the smallest kids knew what
they knew they were being fed a line there. Like everybody knew what Captain Planet was about. Like I didn't know anybody who didn't think it was propaganda, even when I was like 5.
Yeah, it was obvious. But, oh dear. Anyway, we should start wrapping up. Now that I've made my abomination.
But we didn't talk about the G Fuel.
Another ill-advised product. I can't believe this keeps happening.
To be honest, I don't actually know what G Fuel is.
They
Oh, it was
popped up a while ago. I think they're a spin-off of the Coke company. Where they make energy drinks and they slap the whole "it's made for gamers" thing on it.
What's
Monster.
I remember Gillette doing that.
Yeah,
That was funny.
but this is every now and again it pops up and it's always embarrassing.
You know what I really want when I buy a razor is a code for the latest Call of Duty.
I thought you wanted white guilt.
No, it was male guilt. They went
Oh, right.
Simon.
That was you want to become a misandrist.
Yes,
You need to hate men. That's the important thing. If you buy razors, you need to hate men.
apparently.
Here's a razor conveniently to cut yourself if you're a man.
But yeah, I do remember that there was something. Someone tried to release a product called like Gamer Grub or something.
Oh, right. I remember Gamer Grub.
A can full of undifferentiated stuff. That seems like the major failing in the marketing is that it was called Gamer Grub, but it actually looked like a grub.
Yeah, it was awful looking.
It's like you called it grub because you mean, oh, that's a synonym for food, right? No.
No. It's actually made of grubs.
It's a description of what's in the can.
It still exists.
Why?
It is now rebranded, which is a whole bunch of miscellaneous snacks inside of a box like Loot Box.
That's like a different company.
That's probably just the trademark got released and then reused.
Yeah.
Because Gamer Grub was a product, a discrete product, which was a can full of sludge.
I thought it was a frozen thing full of sludge. But yeah, either way, it was sludge.
Well, the one I remember seeing, this was like, a decade and a half ago.
Right.
It was a can full of sludge. And when I say sludge, I mean very viscous sludge. Like it was like Soylent Green for gamers sort of thing. Like it was
it made with people?
It might have been made with people. It was just an undifferentiated mass containing the nutritional requirements to not die at the keys.
Because there was another one about 8 years ago, and that was a frozen variant of it, which was frozen slop on a tray.
This was like a can with a grub in it. Like It looked like, because it was a can shaped, if you pulled the whole thing out, it would just look like a maggot.
Yeah.
Like that was what they were trying to market. It seems like a very poor. The idea was for poop sockers. That was what they were marketing.
That's what they were marketing at. Yeah.
They were marketing it for people who need to get all of their dietary requirements without ever leaving the keyboard. That's what they were after.
If you're poop socking, by the way, stop. Reflect on your life. For God's sake, go outside.
I live in a rosy world where nobody ever actually did that.
Thankfully, no.
And I live in utter denial that anybody might ever have done so.
All right.
But I also know that Absolute Virtue did take 36 hours to kill.
Yeah, that was a thing.
I drank my own piss on the show once.
Wait, what?
But that was an accident.
That
It was because you happened to pee in the same can that you get drink out of.
And you were drunk.
I might have been drunk, yes. Oh my goodness.
Good times. Maybe not for Ari. But...
Yeah, not for Ari. Good times for us, because it's funny.
I set my shirt on fire, too.
Yeah, it's a good thing you eased back on the drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be dead.
Yeah. All right, run us out.
All right, folks. Be careful of cancel culture out there. Do what you can to weather 2020. We'll get through it. We'll be there at the end, hopefully, if I don't have to go, actually pull out the plans with the opossum and make them practical. I will be there with you. And closing comments go.
I still don't want to adult anymore, but that's not going to change.
Screw the federal government.
This picture that Missing has posted in chat, like, I would consider it to be a parody if I did not live through that period.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the Fox Kids block. I think, that had. Oh no, that's Burger King. It was
Yeah, I
either
think that
Fox
one was Burger King.
It was either Fox Kids or Burger King.
Because all of the major fast food chains were doing something similar at the time.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the one that was done by Georgie Pie, I think. Don't know why I remember that one.
McDonald's did it in video game form, and they were appallingly bad.
Does
Except
Georgie
for
Pie still exist?
Global Gladiators. Global Gladiators was great. Anyway.
All right. We'll see you next week. Email topic of the week. Pick anything we talked about. Sayonara. Bye-bye.